Welcome to Connie Martinson Talks Books. During World War II, Americans who were captured by the Japanese were often used as really slave labor. They were used at places that one never knew if they were going to come out alive. I have just recently been reading the true letters of a Dr. Maxwell Andler, who was there in the Bataan March. But my guest today, Paul Rutherford, has taken that type of fact and turned it into great fiction called The Tunnel Hoard. It's about gold that the Japanese had buried on the island in the Philippines. The book is published by Witston, and welcome, Paul Rutherford.
Thanks, Connie. It's great to be here.
Thank you. And you begin the story with Jacob Thomas, and his friend, who are there as prisoners of the Japanese, not fed much, starving, and having to dig in tunnels.
Correct. Right.
Pursue a little further.
Well, I think what the story is based on, quite a bit of fact. During the time, it's probably pretty well known that the Japanese were great warring nations prior to the start of the war, and they took gold from and other riches from all over the Orient. The countries they captured, Manchuria, Korea, and others, and the Philippines was a transshipment point. And at the beginning of the war, they had hoarded all this gold and found that with the war starting, they were afraid to take it back to Tokyo. So they decided to bury it in the Philippines. And it's pretty well-known lore over there that it's all over there, and it made the great basis for the story. Yeah. And
Jacob takes off his dog tag. He has his friend who dies next to him. And we now go to the present.
Correct.
And we're with a terrific young guy named Connor, who's madly in love with a girl while his fiance's in England. The girl is Maggie, interesting character. He had met her at the boxing ring where they all trained. And he's got a partner named Alex. They're involved in real estate in Albany area. Not too far from the bone, I would say.
I think that most authors a lot of times write what they know, and having been in the real estate and mortgage business, it was not too far a stretch to put them there.
Now, have you boxed?
I have.
You have?
I have. I've trained and boxed with Andy Schott, who was trained by Floyd Patterson.
Oh.
And so we've done some sparring, and I did that in my youth. Now I don't like to get hit in the face too much, so we don't do that too much anymore.
Because Connor, his friend Alex, has been punched in the nose with sort of a sucker punch by an Australian who was there,
Correct.
Whom they call Sid Vicious.
Right.
And he's being trained to really fight professionally.
Yes.
And Connor, you don't hit a friend of his.
Exactly. Yeah, he's a stand-up guy. He's always there for his friends, and he's not going to let anybody bully him, bully his friends, and so that became the kind of the backstory for what was going on.
Because Connor and Alex are really like a buddy movie.
Yes, they are.
Neither one is as stronger. They both come in at times when the other really needs it.
Yeah, yeah. I thought it made for a great camaraderie, and actually, the characters were based on actually my youngest son and one of his friends, and in their camaraderie, and I saw the way they kind of got along, and it kind of was it was easy to kind of put those two in the place and really write the characters around them.
And Maggie?
Maggie was kind of a fictitious character. I mean, she really wasn't based on anyone that was out there, but I thought she brought, an interesting quality into the book that you don't see in a lot of books.
She is interesting in that we discover, for she had been in an accident where she was dead for 20 minutes.
Correct.
And when she came back from that point, she had other sort of qualities.
Yeah, she has almost an afterlife quality where she feels a connection to people who have passed, and it's not something that she can really place her finger on. She's not, she doesn't really know what this is. She just gets these sensations, and this is kind of one of the things that leads Connor a little bit on his adventure, among other things.
Yeah. Well, Connor also and Alex needs a fast 100,000 to carry them in a line of credit. Now, I do know we were talking earlier, you know the mortgage business.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, and yeah, they are basically investors in urban properties, and they found that with the amount of competition moving into the area, that their business has gotten them in trouble, and they've had to, they're a little stretched out at this point, and they're wondering how they're going to be able to keep the business afloat.
But Connor goes to his mother and says, I need 100,000, can you do it? And she, who has not been the businesswoman in the family, will do it for her son.
She will, right, correct.
Yeah.
Correct, but I think also within the book, you know, there's other problems that are saying that this 100,000 may not fix everything. So then they're really being pushed to the next level.
His father has been missing. Where was his father?
His father was, as far as he knew, his father was gone to Mexico to go fishing, and he really didn't know a lot about what his activity was. But him and his friend were in Mexico fishing, as far as Connor knew, when actually they were on another treasure hunt there. And what starts to happen is this secret life of his father starts to unfold as a message is sent to his mother from an estranged partner who is in the Philippines. And it starts to unravel a mystery that was taking place 15 years ago.
All right, and Connor gets involved because he goes to the attorney, Wes, who, I love the whole idea of the father being on videotape telling him, this is what you should do.
Exactly, yeah. Wes has been his kind of his partner for a long time, and a good friend where Wes doesn't have a whole lot of friends. And he has been kind of the keeper of the gate. He really knows all the secrets. And when this message comes through that they hadn't been expecting, Connor's mother tells him, you need to go see Wes. He'll explain what's going on. And Wes has been instructed by his father to kind of open up the secrets a little bit in case his father doesn't return, because they need to get a message.
So at this point, Connor and Alex figure we'll go over there. They discover there's gold. This is what part of the adventure is. And there's a man named George who will be meeting them.
Right. George is Connor's father's partner, who, when they went to the Philippines originally, they knew where the gold was. They had uncovered it, but because of certain activities that took place, they were forced to abandon the project. And because of rebel influences and military, they are now revisiting it. And George has revisited the dig. He's reconstituted it, so it's ready to go again. So he wants to contact Guy because he doesn't really know Connor's father's missing at this point, because he's only been missing for 10 months.
All right. Paul, how did you write that scene where Connor is going down, what, 400 feet?
Down a tunnel. I guess you write it when you've done it.
Have you done it?
Yeah, we've, during a time, there was a time, I think what makes the book so realistic is that we were involved in a similar situation in the Philippines in the early 90s, and we weren't on a treasure hunt. It was,
Who is we?
Myself and a partner of mine. It all came, I used to import furniture from the Philippines at one time, and during the visit to a factory, a friend of mine, a partner over there, Fred, was met by some people in the factory. They told him this story. Not that any of us believed it, because we didn't until I had made a trip over there, and they took us there, and they showed us, where this gold trove was, and they wanted assistance to help get it out of the country. And we became involved in an operation there, and it led to about 2 years of trying to help them out. But at the end, unfortunately, that didn't work out, but the story kind of...
All right, well, but tell me about going down that 400
yeah,
feet.
it was in the Philippines, that's how they tunnel. I mean, and they basically, instead of digging a mine straight ahead, they go straight down, like from the top, because it's cheaper and because it's a lot easier. You don't have to reinforce the walls or anything. But they did it, it was like explained in the book. There were a bunch of rickety ladders down there.
Yeah, I was going to say, how did you get the ladders to keep going down?
Yeah, they build the ledges. So that what they do is every 20 feet or so, they build a ledge, and there's 20 foot of bamboo ladder, and they just keep alternating it, and that's how they do it.
And when you got down to the bottom, was the truck, I mean, because in the book, you talk about they cut the tires in order to get the trucks inside that hole.
Right. Yeah. There was a at the time that we went, that I was able to go down there. There was there were several trucks. There was this huge amount of gold bullion. And we were able to bring out, they allowed us to bring out part of it, 6 bars actually, that we picked at random that we were able to test and to authenticate it. Because over there, you never know what's real and what isn't real. I mean, there's a lot of fake things that take place there. So we were able to bring it out and test it. And once we tested it and found that it was pure, then we put an operation, we started an operation to try to help them remove it. Unfortunately, as we kept going down the road and kept saying, okay, we need to get this out now and move it there, they kept stalling a little bit, and we had plans to help them build hospitals and schools and things like that. But unfortunately, at the end of the day, they didn't really want that humanitarian stuff. They wanted weapons. And that's when I kind of said, well, we're not going to do that.
Because I understand that many of the pirates who are robbing the ships in the middle of the China Sea are from the Philippines, and they are going back and reinforcing with what they steal or what is paid off in kidnapping fees, Al-Qaeda movements there.
I don't know during the time I was there, because it was so long ago. I mean, I don't think Al-Qaeda was as big, or it was a little different. I never felt that sense, and to tell you the truth, at that time, I wasn't really aware of any of that, but we knew that there was a balance of power in feudal areas like this, where it's kind of like he who has the most guns wins, and that's what they really wanted. There was a balance between the rebels and the military, and we had every intention of wanting to help the people. It was a poor village. We wanted to really do what was right, but we had no intention of upsetting that balance of power by supplying weapons to those areas. That wasn't what we were there for.
You were lucky to get out with your life.
Yeah, towards the end, it got a little bit hairy over there.
Because in the book, that's what's happening to Connor and Alex, getting onto that boat that will get them out of there.
Right. Yeah, we had a little bit different. I mean, I did have to have people come in and fly me out towards the end. The last few weeks, it was there was a lot of problems that went on.
Now we come to the person in England who has said, get rid of them. Get rid of Connor and Alex. We now know where the money is. I know who they are. Have them disappear.
Yeah, I think that that was based on some information that I had gotten during the time we were looking to actually sell gold and find ways that there were, people out there in power that control the gold industry that really don't want a lot of gold to surface because it can upset the market value. And so a lot of these things were based on research and facts. So I think that people who understand commodities will see that there's a lot of truth and the history. I tried to be as accurate as I could, writing everything I can and throwing in my own experiences, and it just made for a good story.
It certainly did. When did you start writing this?
1999, I started writing. It was not, I've read a lot of authors and I enjoy reading. I'm a lot like you do, and one day I was reading one of my authors, and I was
Who's
a little. I read a lot of Grisham and a lot of Patterson and a lot of the. I'm looking for, when I write, I try to write for a reader. I want them to be entertained. I think that it's important, for me as a reader and for my readers, I want them to be able to, they're going to invest 6-8 hours into reading something that I've written, or I'm investing that into somebody else. I want them to be entertained during the process, and I want them to be satisfied at the end. And that's what I really looked at.
Did you plot it?
You know something? I didn't. It was one of those things. I'm not the type of writer that I don't sit down and outline. I really sit down and I write.
Did you go to writers' conferences or work with a group?
I did not. But what I used to do, what I did quite a bit when I started, after I started writing, I started going to some of the Art Center writing classes, just to kind of hone my style. And I think with like any writer that's writing a first novel or writing something, like I tell people who call me now and say, what should I do? I say,
aren't you lucky to be an expert now?
I am lucky now. And I give them the best advice that I got from a best-selling author, Bernie Connors, was, I called him up and I said, what would you do? I said, this is, my first novel, what would you do? He said, take it and find someone who is a professional, a book doctor, somebody who can take your work, read it, and give you all the holes that are in your, you know, in it, because you will have them as a new writer. And so I did. I said, where do I find this person? He said, go on the internet, find someone. So I found a half a dozen people. I called them, I interviewed them, and I settled on one gentleman, and I sent him my work, and he sent me back a 60-page critique. And that was kind of my learning curve for writing. I made his corrections, sent them back to him, and they went from there.
Okay. When they came back, did you agree with all of them?
Yeah, I did.
You did?
I did, because the way he did it, it wasn't all negative, it was positive too. It was like all the pieces. And I think the biggest thing with a lot of new writers is character viewpoint is a big, big thing. What tends to happen sometimes, you'll jump around from one character to another in their head, and I think with a lot of new writers, they need to get that character viewpoint. You know, you have viewpoint characters who, that's how the reader kind of gets ingrained with your character.
Because in your book, you go from, each chapter is different. I mean, it's present, past, and I thought, now when are they going to come together?
Correct, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was the fun of writing it. I think that the way it's written is a little bit different than a lot of books that are out there, and it's funny how it just, for me as a writer, everybody has their own little things that they do. For me, it was just that I sit down and I write, and it kind of just all kind of comes together. I'm kind of living it as I'm writing it.
All right, now, you're managing a business, you have 3 sons and a wife. How'd you find the time to do this? Would you do it every morning or on weekends?
A lot of nights I did it. I'm a late night writer. I would go home, and like when everybody was kind of settled in, I would go down to my desk. I have an office downstairs in my house, and my cat would curl up on the side of the desk, and my dog would be underneath my feet, and I'd sit there right till 2, 3 in the morning sometime.
Yeah.
And that was, for me, that was easy, but I have been able to write almost anywhere. I don't really have a problem. If I find some time and it's time to write, I'll just put myself there and I'll just write.
All right, this is based pretty much on personal experience, given a sort of a flavor. What else in your life has been that you will now do the next book?
Well, I actually have the next book coming out in the fall. It's called The Bahama Triangle, and it's about a tennis pro down in the Caribbean. And he gets hurt during the U.S. Open, and he has to retire, so he becomes a pro down at the Atlantis, and he meets the wrong type of woman and gets involved in a drug problem, and not with him personally, but a drug operation, and it leads to quite an event down there, and that's kind of the next one. And they always wonder about, after you write one based on personal experience, can you make the transition and write the next one? And I am a tennis player, so that helped a little bit, but the rest of it was strictly fiction.
Have you followed the various Masters tournaments?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. We love the tennis, and it's been.
Have you been to Roland Garros?
I have not.
Yeah, the French Open.
No, I have not, but I've been to Wimbledon. And I go to the U.S. Open almost every year. Yeah. And I think one of the things that's also in the next novel is I'm pretty good friends with John Newcomb and Fred Stolle and Roy Emerson. I know them from going to camp in October. I go to San Antonio to Newcomb's tennis ranch. And I was able to use some of that in the book. And some of the other gentlemen that are involved in tennis, like Cliff Drysdale, were nice enough to lend their persona to the book also.
We should say, if you're not a tennis fan, the men you have mentioned are like the Academy Award winners of tennis.
They're the legends, pretty much, of tennis. They're the guys that kind of started it all, and it's been a great relationship. They've been very supportive of that.
Okay, back to the Tunnel Hoard. Connor and Alex, you've got 2 good characters there. Do you think you'll make a sequel using them again?
Yeah, I will. I think there's I have plans to do. I have a couple more novels in mind before, but I think 2 more novels down the road. I'm going to do one to kind of bring the father back into the mix.
You've really become a professional writer then.
I like to think so, but you know, we all just have to keep working at it. You know?
Where'd you go to school?
I went to school in Schenectady, New York, in high school, and then to college, Albany State University.
Did you write at that time?
I did not. But I used to write fun things for like birthdays, poetry, and things like that that were fun for people, and I always enjoyed writing, but I think everybody has at least one book in them. And I was with an author, a historian, Joe Persico, and he has a little he has a little plaque above his desk, and it's just basically to start writing. He goes, you start by putting one word after another.
And that's the longest journey.
And that's exactly.
Yeah,
and that's how you do it.
begins with 1 foot. Yeah.
Yes, and that's his writing mantra.
Yeah.
And he was quite a guy. But I think, like with anyone, I said, you know, when people talk to me about, geez, I'd like to write, I always say, well, you just got to start.
All right. A lot of sexy scenes in this book. Mm-hmm. What'd your wife think when she read it?
I told those are all fiction, Connie.
No. Oh. Has she been with you in the Philippines when you were there?
She was not with me in the Philippines, but a lot of the things in there. I mean, obviously there's events that take place there, and those aren't mine, but we enjoyed.
Why are you blushing, sir?
Well.
Yeah, no, that's great fun. They're lovely people. Even Susan, his fiancée, who's the attorney in London, and she turns out to be the one who's spilled the beans.
Right. Yes, she was. I thought she made for a good character. I thought that she definitely played a role. And I think what I enjoyed about the book is, and what a lot of readers have told me is that they start reading it and they kind of don't know where it's going, but they follow it very well, and then at the end it kind of ties everything together, and all the characters play a pretty important role.
And fortunately, they all come back safe and sound.
Which is always a good ending for people.
Yes. I thank you very much, Paul. I enjoyed reading it. I can only recommend it for people who are either on a long plane trip and want something to distract them. It's a perfect book.
I think so, yeah. We think it's a good vacation book or a travel book, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Will you autograph my book?
I certainly will. Thank you.